All right, so we just completed the circles, circumference, and area exercise sheet. There's a help video in Canvas if you had any difficulties completing it. And now we're going to be looking at the worksheets that go along with it. And so we're going to start here at the estimating circumference and area worksheet. So this is what you want out in front of you. And it says in the instructions, a good way to quickly estimate the circumference and area of a circle is to round pi off to the whole number 3. Instead of using 2 decimal digits like 3.14, just use pi equals 3 to estimate the circumference and area of each of the circles below. All right, perfect. So instead of dealing with those pesky decimals, we can just round 3.14 to 3. So we're going to be using 3 here to multiply the diameter by. All right. So here we go. We've got our two formulas here right on the sheet for us. We have pi times the diameter to get our circumference. Now remember, circumference, that's referring to the distance around the circle. And I really like how they had it in the video where it's like if you take the diameter, so that's going to be here in purple, the diameter, and you were to lay it around the outside of the circle, it'd be 1, 2, 3 trips around the circle just about with a little bit of space left over here, and that's where the 0.14 comes in. All right, so what we're going to do here to calculate the circumference is take our diameter, which we don't have yet, right? It only says 5 meters, but if we double it, we get 10 meters, and so we're going to do 10 for our diameter, that's the D, and then we're going to put in 3 for pi because 3.14 is close to 3, and we're just estimating here. And so we do 3 multiplied by 10 to get 30. Pi multiplied by the diameter to get about 30, okay? And then over here when we're doing the area, so that's everything on the inside of the circle, we're going to have to look at the radius, which is given here. Remember, the radius is the center point extended outwards, touching the surrounding circle line. And so here we have a diameter of 10, which means a radius of 5. And so we put 5 in for r, the radius. And we're going to do the radius squared, which means we're going to do the radius times the radius. So 5 times 5. And when we do that, we're going to get 25 here. And then we need to multiply it by 3 because that's roughly what pi is. So if we're estimating, we do 3 times 25, and that gives us 75 meters squared. So let's do one more problem together. So I'm going to write out what my formula is for circumference. That is pi multiplied by the diameter. And then for the area, that's going to be pi multiplied by r squared. Now remember, we're estimating here, so you can go ahead and replace pi with 3 in both of these equations. So now we have 3 times the diameter, and it doesn't give us the diameter, it gives us the radius here. And so if we wanted to create the diameter, I just have to go double what the radius is, and that's going to be 2 inches going all the way across. So that is the diameter here. So now I can replace 2 in for D, and now I have 3 times 2 equals my circumference, my distance all the way around here. I'll do it in green so it's really clear to see. That's my circumference. All right, so the LED lights that I want to put around my hot tub, it's going to take me 6 feet if my hot tub is 1 inch for the radius. I sure hope it's a lot more than 1 inch. That reminds me, I need to include my label here. Distance all the way around is 6 inches. And notice it's not inches squared because we're only worried about what's going on the outside. Okay, we're not going to put little squares on the outside. That wouldn't really work out. So looking at the area, we have 3 times the radius squared. So the radius here is 1. And so I'm going to do 1 times 1 here because that's with the radius squared. And that's going to give me 3 times 1. And that's going to be just 3. And remember, that's going to be 3 inches squared because you could fill in the area here with some square. All right, So you're going to go ahead and complete the rest of these on the worksheet. Remember the formulas for circumference, that's pi times the diameter, and the formula for area, which is pi times the radius squared, and we're just estimating, so you're going to use 3 for pi. All right, calculating the circumference. So here we're working specifically with the accurate pi decimal, 3.14, and we're going to multiply that by the diameter, just like we did up above, except now we're using 3.14 instead of 3. So here you plug in 3.14 for pi, and then for the diameter, you put in 6. Notice you don't put in 3 because this is only the radius that's given. This would be the diameter here if we drew it all the way across. Okay, so that's going to be 6 meters. When you multiply them together, and yes, if you'd like to, you can use a calculator, then you're going to get 18.84 meters. And since it's asking for circumference, it's not going to be meters squared. Area is the only time we're going to have square footage, like meters squared or inches squared. And this is just circumference here, so let's go ahead and do the next one. Diameter equals 1 multiplied by 2, because we're going to double it. That gives us 2 meters, or 2 inches, excuse me, for our diameter here. And now we need to plug that into our formula of the circumference equals pi multiplied by our diameter of 2. And so that's going to be 3.14 multiplied by our diameter of 2. And that's going to give us, let's see, 2 times 3 gives us 6. 2 times 14 gives us 28. So it's going to be 6.28. And that's going to be inches squared because we're talking about area here. All right. Notice some of these include the diameter here, and some of these include just the radius, like the first 2 problems we did. Regardless of what it has, you want to make sure you have the diameter calculated. So if it gives it to you, great, you don't need to do these steps then. But if it doesn't give it to you, then you definitely need to do that step of getting it into the diameter. All right. And then here we go, calculating area. So area, you're just dealing with the radius. So while we wanted the diameter up here, we actually want the radius when we're calculating the area. I'm actually going to write that right here. I want the radius because our formula for calculating area, which is luckily right here, is area equals pi times our radius squared. And again, radius squared just means radius times itself. All right, so when the radius is 3 here, all right, we cut 6 in half, we get 3. Then we're going to take 3 multiplied by itself, and we get 9. And then we'd have to multiply 9 by 3.14, and that's going to give us 28.26. And again, area, so meters squared. And then we have to go over here. We already have the radius given to us. Hooray, we get to skip a step. And so here we go. Area equals pi multiplied by the radius squared. So I'm going to plug in 3.14 for pi, and then radius squared, that's going to be what 5 times 5 would be. And so that's going to be 3.14 multiplied by 25. And let's see, when I do that, oh, this is a little too tough to do in my head. And so I'm going to have to go over here to the calculator tool. And if I do 3.14, hope you're typing this in your calculator too, so we can do it together. 3.14 multiplied by 25, that gives me 78.5, and again, it's feet squared. That's the key there. All right, so using this formula, area equals pi multiplied by r squared, you're going to complete the rest of these, and then here is where you're going to stop, okay? So you did those first 2, calculating area, calculating circumference, and then the estimating circumference and area. So the 3 in total, 1 you're estimating, 2 you're actually doing the calculations, and that is all you have to do. All right, thank you so much.